This is Hunter Muse.
And this is Chris Snipes, and you are listening
to The Melt.
You mentioned in the book Lite that before any of these experiences, before you started getting into the DMT realm and looking into that, there was this sound that you would hear in your head ever since you were a kid. What do you think that sound was? What do you think that was?
So I suppose in terms of Western science and medicine, it's would be called tinnitus. But if you look at Eastern cultures, then it's considered, I don't know, something different, like the evidence of the interface between the physical self and the greater spiritual universe. And yeah, I mean, I've always had it. I can hear it now. It's never troubled me. It was extremely pronounced when I was young, and especially so when I was alone in bed at night. And I think I've touched on a few mystical experiences. Yeah. It's diminished with age, but it's still very much present. And yeah, I mean, the very first time I tried DMT, and it intensified that sound, which had been such a large part of my childhood, I was like, wow, that alone. I mean, it wasn't a breakthrough dose, but mm-hmm. Wow, that was really interesting. My wife was there and she said, right, you've tried it now, leave it alone. I'm like, no, this is really interesting, because it really, really amplified the intensity and the frequency of that sound. So, yeah.
Interesting. And had you done any other psychedelics up until that point?
Oh, yeah, I'd done a very large. My introduction to psychedelics was an extremely large dose of magic mushrooms. I'd gone out picking them with some boys in our town. They were much older than me, and they didn't have a vehicle, and I did. So they said, "Come on, let's go pick some magic mushrooms." And I picked a lot, and I didn't know the dose, and I must have had 100. And wow, that was just incredible. And then acid here and there, some good quality, some amazing quality, some really, really terrible quality, really some funny stories to tell about that. And then, the old rave scene, which was just fantastic, and I was very lucky to grow up in a town that was close to Leeds, where they had an absolute, fantastic techno club, and it was just amazing.
Did you get the enhancement of that noise with any of the other drugs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. But not to the same extent as with DMT, which just really seems to ramp it up remarkably.
Interesting. Well, what was it that led you to? Was it just sort of the natural progression of your drug experimentation? What led you to DMT?
I think I got to an age where it's, I fell in love with my wife. I fell in love with a woman, and we married, and we had family. And I guess I've for a long time, I've always misliked the rave scene, because it seemed to end abruptly with, it was just became very incredibly difficult to buy ecstasy. And that kind of killed the scene in the UK. And then, years passed and got married, and research chemicals were a thing, such as, I think it was APB, which was an analog of MDA, And I would buy that online, and I'd stay up all night or all weekend, sort of reading things. And my wife was very good and tolerant. And I think it was through that I came across. I think I read something, and then I came across like the Spirit Molecule documentary, and I was wow.
Yes.
I felt like this is the news I've been waiting for, a spirit molecule, and that's what got me started.
Cool. Was it hard to acquire once you?
I mean, there was a lot to learn, and I spent months. Once I'd seen the Spirit Molecule documentary, I spent months online reading research experiences, people's experiences, and it's like, oh my God, it's like they're so crazy. It sounds like you're physically going to another realm. So I didn't know what to expect, but I did lots of online research, and through that realized, there's a smokable form, you can extract it from bark. And then I found that bark was really easy to obtain online. And I had no idea what I was doing, in terms of the chemistry, but I knew I needed to take a special care with the chemicals that were involved in extracting it. And then that first morning where you wake up and you see you've got like a sort of snow globe, you've got crystals in your naphtha from a freeze precipitation. It's like waking up as a small boy and there's loads of Christmas presents under the tree. Yes! Then you had to work out how to smoke it. And I was so impetuous, I was like just trying my own ways to smoke it, and they weren't working. And the first time I tried it, where it really ramped up the intensity, I think I'd done it on like a sort of depressed fizzy pop can, with some holes punched in, like when you're a teenager and you've got some pot, and
Exactly.
and then from that I came across the machine, the sort of traditional glass pipe with some wire mesh and a torch flame light and a hole in the base of the pipe, and I really liked that method. I really favoured that method because it included a degree of skill. Mm-hmm. And it was the difference between the skill was a difference between getting like almost like tasteless, like clean vapor versus horrible acrid smoke, which was still potent, but it was merciless on your throat and your lungs. Right. And then in later years I have tried the vape devices, and they're just amazing. They are so efficient and so effective, but the downside is you're putting a gram of DMT into that carrier liquid, that carrier thing, and in a few weeks the potency is still there, but it's diminishing, and it doesn't hold as well as what I did. I made a lot of frequent extractions. I favoured, like having fresh crystals. So I'd have like crystals that would last me a couple of weeks, then I'd be making fresh. Because I realised, like, even if they sit in the fridge, and you squeeze them tight and you keep them out of light and you try and avoid all those things that degrade the crystals. Mm-hmm. But yeah, after a while, especially when you're accessing them often like I was, they do diminish in potency, but that's not to say that even when they've diminished in potency, it's still a force to be reckoned with, because it's sure. DMT.
So I know nothing about that process of extracting it yourself. What does that involve?
Oh, okay. So that involves obviously the bark in a very finely powdered form, and then caustic soda, which is also, and I think you guys call it lye, and I think universally it's known as a drain cleaner. So it's extremely corrosive. You can't be getting it in your eye. It's not good on your skin. So you got to wear goggles and take great care. And then naphtha, which I think you guys know, that's the sort of lighter fluid, which is highly flammable, a petrochemical. So you got to exercise great care with that, and no naked flames, etc., etc. You can wash it afterwards with heptane. But yeah, I found I was getting them consistently clean, white, crystalline products. I was using mimosa hostilis root bark. I never managed to acquire acacia root bark, but I think that seems to give a more yellowy orange. I have actually managed to acquire from MHRB mimosa hostilis root bark, more yellowy orange product by going heavy on the caustic soda, the lye, and really breaking down the fats. And it's very nice. Yeah, it's nice.
Interesting. How long does it, from beginning to end, how long does the process?
Oh, I mean, you can probably, if you're doing a small batch, you could probably do this in 12 hours. I mean, that's rushing. Wow. You're really imposing upon the chemicals to work their magic. Okay. But you could do it in 12 hours with a very small. I want to say small. I mean, principally, you're relying on that freeze precipitation, the capacity of the freezer to bring down the temperature of the naphtha and precipitate out the crystals. But yeah, it's a process that I never liked rushing. I'd like let my bark steep in the lye soup for 2 to 3 days. I enjoyed shaking it up every so often a day. I don't know if it benefited or not, but I told myself it did. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've done it many, many times, and my wife's seen me do it, my children have seen me do it, and still, if I've not done it for a long time, but if I do it and I see the crystals in the morning, ready to sort of decant the naphtha and dry the crystals, still brings a smile to my face.
I can imagine. How much do your kids, how hip are they to the whole situation?
What's Sorry, Chris?
How aware are they of what?
I think that so my third book, which is it's more philosophical, shall we say, and there's fewer reports. This is the third book. Yeah, and thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah. Your support means a great deal. Thank you. Yeah. So both boys are pretty academic, one especially so. So I said, look, guys, I want you to proofread these, and if you do a good job, I'll pay you some money. And they both did a good job. The academic one especially did a fantastic job. So they got some cash with that. So I'm not sure they understood the concept of it. But then going back, when I was smoking at home, upstairs when the family were downstairs, and there were times where I was moved to ecstatic laughter. I mean, the kind of laughter that it's not normal, it's just crazy.
Bordering on that.
And they've heard that, and I remember once smoking outside in an old redundant armchair that we were going to get rid of it, and it was a lovely day, and I smoked this dose, and it just moved me to ecstatic laughter. And behind me was the window where my boys were, gaming or whatever. And I remember it's like I picked up my boy's thoughts, because I asked him, I said, did you say this? He said, no, I never said it. But it was like, it was crystal clear in my mind. He was saying, I hope I can laugh like that when I'm older. And my wife was in the next window, in the kitchen sink. I don't know if she was in denial, but she said she didn't hear anything, and that's just impossible, because I was like outlandishly loud in just ecstatic laughter. So yeah, they know, and that they see me outside many times on the grass looking skyward, either about to commence or deep in a trip or coming out of a trip and reflecting, and waiting to see if I can see a black orb UFO traversing the sky, kind of like, I don't know, something that's just interacted with me saying hi down there.
Yeah Cool. I ask because I used to, when I smoked pot more frequently, I used to not hide it from my kids, because I always differentiated saying that, the laws of man aren't necessarily good laws. Just because something is against the law or illegal, it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. Gay marriage was against the law for a long time, Stupid things. Many stupid things are against the law. So the laws of man do not dictate, the morals that one should live by. It's always the way that I delineated it to them. And they seem to understand.
So, I mean, just still on this topic, I mean, I've, since I published, I've got a little medicine sort of box of my own sort of wares, and, I've shown my boys that I've said, this is this, you've gone through it, and, not hiding it from them. I mean, they're pursuing their own kind of like developing their own personalities, that they don't seem to have any interest in this whatsoever. I think they're they're like looking up to things like I don't know, I want to say clean cut. There was a guy in Romania, the guy, I forget his name, but
Andrew Tate.
that's the one. I don't know why his name escaped me, because I have looked into him, and I kind of like, he's an agent of change. So yeah, my boy's kind of inspired by that kind of individual. And we were told by school, oh, be careful what your children are looking at, it's Andrew. And I checked him out, and I sort of vaguely knew who he was. And I'm just gonna say, I like the guy. He's confident, he's brash, he's got a lot of faults, but he's an agent of change. It's like him or love him, he's an agent of change.
Yeah, I don't know anything about him. What do you know about Andrew Tate?
Okay.
I know that he upsets some parents when they find their young sons are interested in listening to his podcasts or any interviews that he's done.
But what I've seen is my boys like join gyms and become really sporty and sort of really conscious about their sort of their body shape and their body image, not obsessively so, but and don't think that's such a bad thing this day and age.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, for sure. Well, what led you to begin to start recording your experiences, and how late into the game was that?
So I'd had about 50 experiences with DMT, like breakthrough experiences, and at that time I was still very emotionally immature. My emotional intelligence was I'm gonna just say underdeveloped, and God bless my wife for taking a chance on me. And after like about 50 experiences, I decided, I said, I'm really gonna try and work out what's going on here. It would be wrong to say I like these experiences, because it's difficult to commit to. It's a really sort of scary experience to commit to, but I was really, maybe if I said infatuated with it, and I said, all right, I'm really going to set my stall out here. So as a consequence of that, I said, I'm going to stop masturbating, which had been just a habit, that just a stupid energy misdirecting habit. And I did, I kicked it, and I set my stall out and began writing reports, and there was no intention to publish. And then it was, just saw somebody on TV, a UK celebrity. I think he might be known internationally. I don't know. Stephen Fry is like a Cambridge educated raconteur. And he was applauding script writers and writers in general. And he said, if anybody out there has got an inkling to like write and do something creative, he said, just do it. And that was like a light bulb moment in my head. I was like, I'm gonna do it. Whatever it takes, I'm going to do it. And I did it, and I'm still enjoying it. Yes.
Fantastic. And what did you, what compelled you? Obviously you weren't making a journal of your ecstasy experiences or your LSD experiences. What was it about DMT that
look, I already said that, I'd read hundreds of online trip reports. But when you try it for yourself, you forget all that. It's just like, wow. It's like Terence McKenna said, it's like, it's like death by astonishment kind of thing, It's just like, wow, you forgot everything that everybody else has said about it, and you're just like, that's just impossible. And I've said that many times, just impossible, because you're dealing with, you're perceiving a state that's beyond your own imaginative capacity, and it looks 100 or 1,000 times more real than the sort of terrestrial reality that we all know and love. This reality, and you just can't fathom why that is, because if it's your own mind, then you have to concede that you don't know anything about you. We don't know anything about our own mind. And to some extent, with all the latent powers that are in there, we don't. Yeah. And then you say, well, if it's something outside me that's directing this experience, what is it? And if you've got like clowns, dragons, jesters, machine elves, whatever, then you tend to think that they're the entities and you've gone to their kind of environment. But as I pursued it, I found that's not actually true. You know, these entities are machine elves, clowns, jesters, a woman with a big nose with the lights to the city in the background. You could call these DMT entities, but in my opinion, my experience, my research, these are imaginative constructs of entities that are well known within the esoteric and occult literature. And I guess that's where I have and am taking my research, you know, and I don't know if anybody's on board with it. I think some people are. I don't know, because I'm not really socially active on social media for a number of reasons. And I never read reviews about my books. So I don't know if people are on board with it or not. I mean, some people get through to me and speak favorably, so that's very encouraging.
What was I going to say? Oh, so you think that these entities are objective?
That's a great question. So, and I think I've covered that in the third book. So, I mean, they have to be subjective in that, you know, it's the individual experience in them. But they are objective on some plane, albeit not this plane. You know, if we were like in the plane of nature spirits or the plane of devas, which is, you know, an Eastern term for angels, or daemons, or gods, then that reality and the inhabitants within that reality would be objectively real. But here, you know, I'm in this room, you're in that room, there's an airspace, we're breathing, but I don't see anything, you know, don't see anything. I mean, invisible you wouldn't, would you? But, you know, somehow they're there in some parallel dimension. And obviously, you know, DMT is a key that kind of unlocks something within us that massively changes our setting and promotes a profound, albeit temporary, interaction with something from these hidden dimensions that, you know, yeah, it's just a game-changing experience. You know, it's one of those, you're never the same after it. Have
you heard of Danny Goler and his experiments?
I know that name. Is this the lasers guy?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So, yeah. It'd be great if Ian and I could speak, and I think through a friend I said, look, if the guy wants to speak to me, share my details, you know, because I think he's using a laser, isn't he? And then he's talking about he's seeing universal code.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really great. And I'm not seeing his stuff, but I just heard about it. I thought that was really great because I thought what he's doing is like he's smoking DMT and he's shining laser, and he and others can see this universal code. But I've since heard that no, he's smoking DMT, he's shining a laser, he sees this universal code when nobody else can see it. So this speaks to the first principle in my third book, where, you know, what I've just alluded to, you know, you smoke DMT, the first thing that happens, and it's hugely powerful, is you project, unleash, whether you want to call it your astral self or your immaterial self or something within you that's otherwise latent. It just powerfully projects, and that really changes your settings. So I think what Dan is doing is like he's taking low doses, and I'm not being critical of that at all, because, you know, I've gone down that route and I've learned a lot about these states from exploring low dose inebriations. So I know what he's seeing, you know. I mean, I see that stuff all the time if I smoke low dose, you know. I mean, outside especially, you know, laid down facing the sky, easy. Filling the sky, it's that substance when you sweep your hand through it, it's like you're getting a trail, you know, a tracer trail. To call it universal code is a more academic question. It could be that, because if this is astral stuff and astral means of the stars, then yeah, let's call it universal code. But it'd be really impressive if you could have other people who are not inebriated see it, you know. But I don't need a laser to see it, and I'm sure if Nanny was smoking a sufficient substance, he wouldn't need that laser either. But what do I know? Maybe the laser augments his capacity to see that stuff. But I mean, in my experience, it's unmissable because my approach was unique in that I maintained open eyes. And that being said, with a breakthrough dose, doesn't matter that your eyes are open or closed, you're just going to see the same sort of breakthrough scenery. But outside, when a breakthrough has ended, then you can see all that stuff, filling the local sky as it slowly unfolds back into its latent state within your body over the course of an hour. And, not only that, you can actually feel a tightness on your skin, like the pores of your skin are really tight. And I think that speaks to the sort of immaterial, in terms of terrestrial reality, immaterial sort of nature of this substance. The wind can be blowing, but this stuff is not moving. The wind troubles it not. And equally, the fact that it's this strange substance, if I've smoked it and the sun's been behind me and this stuff fills the sky, and then all of a sudden it's like, in my mind, I'm like, who's turned the sun up? It's like the power of the sun intensifies because the sun's energy is going through that substance, which I believe is, it's denser than the terrestrial stuff that we're used to, and the potency of the sun, the energy of the sun just seems to, like, all of a sudden it's like, wow, and people have said with sound, sound is more augmented. It sounds richer, clearer, cleaner. And yeah, I've certainly experienced that. And I think that speaks to the sound energy transmitting, not just through the air, but the actual astral stuff, or whatever we term it, that's now subsumed throughout the airspace that you're, inebriated within.
Well, granted, I have only read your first book, the DMT and the Occult Mind Lite, but you hear of a lot of people who do this stuff on the regular talk about it pretty much instilling an out-of-body experience. But it seems like what I've read of your experience is they're very in-body, and there are things, actually psycho-spiritual beings that you talk about that this smoking DMT sort of summons. They actually interact with your body.
Yeah, and I think that's by and large most breakthrough experiences. If you're familiar with Rick Strassman's Spirit Molecule documentary, you got the guy whose name escapes me, but it's very poignant, and he said, he had this, it was a very physical feeling, the DMT was injected into his veins, and then this physical feeling, and it's like it shot up through the crown of his head, and it was extremely physical. And he saw these winged beings, and his voice falters. It's really poignant. Now, I've never had that physicality of that, but I am convinced, and I take it on faith, that what he experienced was a projection into either the astral or devashanic realms proper. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie that's not happened to me, and I think it's probably very, very rare. I think, when people are talking about the visual wonders of DMT realm, then we're all having that sort of a mesmerizing breakthrough experience where nature spirits or devas are mesmerically overpowering, our perception, and just showing us otherworldly wonders. The esoteric and occult books do say that the nature spirits have the capacity to cast unlimited glamour upon us, and that's just what this is. But yeah, and it might be things like, it might not come down to like dose. It might come down to things like, where are you as an individual karmically, but I've never had that. And obviously when you start to talk about 5-MeO DMT and Bufo, and this is like a more potent version, shall we say, of DMT, then begs the question, with a strong dose of that, and I've had strong doses, why does that not project you into, out of your body? And I think that's a valid question. And if you've read Lite, then you'll know as a child I had classic out of body experiences, and yeah, so I'm able to contrast that with my DMT experiences, and no, I've never been sort of like a classic out of body experience, albeit in the astral or Devashanic realm or even terrestrial realm. But I don't doubt that it can happen, because I know from just smoking DMT, it's like what I've said about that substance projecting explosively, and by and large it does. I've had really bizarre experiences where I smoked a breakthrough dose of DMT, and that substance, it streamed through my left eyeball, and I just
Wow.
I just can't explain why it would do that. I don't know.
It's interesting. Well, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah. Do you think that via DMT, one is tuning into a frequency that's sort of a lot of the ways that you described it, that you're attracting these things towards you? Do you think that that's the case, that these things are coming from somewhere else, these psycho-spiritual things? Or that they're there already and it allows you to interact with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, some of the books I read, they talk about these realms and say, don't think of these dimensions as a place, but more as a condition or a state that's best represented or best understood in terms of frequency. I mean, with my I still do. I'm tempted to think, they are in a place, that they're all around, and whilst they are, because you hear these phrases in occult literature, astral realm, Davashanic realm, and these are arbitrary, really, it's just one big absolute, but this is helpful to sort of like divide and just understand where things are. But yeah, I think it's down to the frequency, and with a sub breakthrough dose, you're attracting something, but you're not giving it the full license to powerfully interact with you, to mesmerize you, because maybe the lower dose, it just marginally projects that astral stuff. But with a breakthrough dose, I mean, what's really interesting is, and this took me ages to sort of work out what was happening, is we've talked about DMT increases the tinnitus, let's call it, just for argument's sake, and then, like, palpably you feel a presence in your room, and this happens in like seconds, like fractions of seconds. The entity will impose a similar power, and what I mean is, like, it's you can hear it, it's audible, it's palpable, but its energy just goes off the scale. And one minute you are in your bedroom, or you're outside, or you're in your lounge, and then the very next second, and you don't know how you got there, you're in DMT realm, and it's magical, and it's occupied by seemingly autonomous beings. But what I'm arguing is that you've been subjected to a mesmeric spell, and I say that because I've dived deeply into the esoteric and especially the mesmeric literature, which is considered old-fashioned and dated. But it really speaks to the principles that I have put forth in my third book as to what's happening, in DMT breakthroughs, the kind of breakthroughs that I've experienced, and that I think most people experience when they're talking about machine elves and aliens and things like that.
Well, perhaps what's outdated is the language. I mean, maybe it's just different words describing basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So how would you define psycho-spiritual forms?
Psycho-spiritual?
Forms?
What worms?
Forms.
All right. So do you know what? I mean, I think they're just the same as us, but without a body. And then obviously, you get a subhuman kingdom, which they're not quite there. But I mean, you're talking in terms of like, I don't know, will, wisdom, intelligence. So I think the same as us, but these higher beings, you know, that are attracted with DMT, whether they're nature spirits or nature spirits operating under authority of devas or angels or demons. And when I say demons, I don't mean demons in terms of the Christian or Islamic sense of sort of like grotesque gargoyle type beings, you know. And I'm not saying those beings don't exist, but in my experience with DMT, not attracting anything lowly or attracting things higher, you know, even gods. And when I say gods, I don't mean gods in terms of like planetary intelligence or Allah or anything like that, but beings that have been through the human cycle and the you know, evolved free of that now, and you know, sort of co-creators with a much higher power, you know, God, if you like. So yeah, I mean, I think same as us. I think maybe just a separation by degrees. Their powers of imagination, powers of will or volition, powers of empathy and intuition, just far beyond ours. But you know, we're evolving in that direction, so it's not all bad.
Well, how I perceive it is there is the us that is in this room. There's the you that is in that room. There's the projection of these images that's going through space and time right now. And then there's the hundreds, thousands, millions of experiences people have had with you, that there's a projection of those experiences. And then there's all the times that you've taped yourself or been videotaped. There's that version. Are all of those versions you, or are none of those versions you?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a question I can't answer, but you're right. And obviously when you look into esoteric and occult literature and it talks about astral realms, you know, I mean, everything is recorded. Nothing's lost or hidden or forgotten or swept under the carpet, so to speak. It's all there, but it's a mind-bending question, and I can't pretend I know the answer, but it might keep me awake in bed tonight, so I don't know.
I think this is me. I perceive this version, this solid version, as me, but there's thousands of other recorded versions of me that are just as real in that moment. So maybe these entities or these energies are ubiquitous. They're with us everywhere, constantly.
Yeah.
It's that granule of that molecule that we induce, or that we take, that creates that shift of the curtain just slightly, so you can see, oh, these things are here all the time.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's what DMT does. It's like an unveiling to a degree, you know, unveiling and promoting an interaction with, I say, you know, nature spirits or angels or demons or God, you know, things that have got phenomenal powers of volition, willpower, and phenomenal powers of imagination to impose upon a DMT inebriated psychonaut with just the kind of otherworldly wonders that really would sort of promote death by astonishment if you didn't steal yourself away or come out of that experience. You know, I mean, sometimes you just have to sort of look away. It's just too much. And it's an interesting abstract question.
Well, and there's the potential that all of those energies that you're perceiving in that state are you. So they're not angels that are from another realm. This is a version of you that you are capable of perceiving in that moment, because maybe you're vulnerable or your guard is down and you're capable of accepting this thing that you call a metallic elf.
So I guess where I'm coming from, and again, you know, it's like I spent far more time reading the esoteric and occult literature than I have enjoying Terence McKenna, and that's not to disparage Terence McKenna. I just came to that party very late, but I've really immersed myself in the sort of Terence McKenna videos and lectures, and fantastic. But by far, I spent far more time immersing myself in the esoteric and occult literature, and I buy into concepts like occult adepts, and these are individuals who have, you know, they've reached the sort of limit of human consciousness, and now, even though they're still operating in this world, they're active in the astral or even higher realms. And these people, you know, are extremely rare individuals, but these are the ones that sort of keep the perennial philosophy going, you know, and like Paracelsus talking about nature spirits, and all the world's religions talking about angels and demons and gods. So I could never accept on faith that those things don't exist, and my forays with DMT have shown me that they do. So by way of example, I had experiences in my bedroom, and just to keep this story short, I was trying to work out, I was at that stage where I was trying to work out what was causing these otherworldly visions upon me, and I felt like I was getting closer, but whatever power was in the room as me would misdirect me. You know, I'd end up looking that way, or I'd end up looking that way, and like, you know, to the extent that my mind was like, sounds crazy, but took an interest in whatever was happening in the Far East just because of the potency of the misdirection. But then one day, I didn't succumb to the misdirection. There was no visual stuff. It was just like the room was like it is now. But filled with this kind of astral substance, you know, it's like opaque. It's, you know, you can see, you can feel it. And then this, I'm just going to say it, this winged being slowly peeled itself off the walls and the ceilings. It was like it's like a giant stingray kind of thing, but, you know, filling the room, and it just slowly and serenely glided out of the room. You know, I mean, it went in the direction of the door, but, you know, the walls and the either side, no obstruction to this thing. And I was there. This was a real breakthrough in my research. I was like, there you go. I see you. And to see something like that, and that's not the only experience I've had like that, to see these otherworldly beings giving you not even a glimpse, but, you know, starkly revealing themselves in this reality, that is as life-changing as seeing the machine elves and the otherworldly glamour. So, you know, I couldn't say no to my research because I've seen these things. So, you know, and I know people say, well, it could be hallucination, it could be this, but when you're seeing them in like otherwise consensus reality, and what I mean by that is, well, I can see the wardrobe and I can see the walls and I'm outside, I can see the trees, I can see the house, but look at this thing leaving me, you know, look at it. Or even like black orb UFOs, you know, and I've brought my family out. No, look at that, you know. So, and they're, you know, they're not inebriated with DMT, but I've observed these black orb UFOs traverse the sky in response to me projecting my mind stuff, my astral stuff, whatever, you know, really high into the sky. You know, and what is interesting is, and this is like, we talked about my first book that I've retired and it was overly detailed. I was really, I don't want to say obsessive, but really detailed on the minutiae of these experiences. So what happens after the breakthrough where you, I don't want to say coming down, that's inappropriate, but you are starting to
reintegrate.
Yeah, reintegrate. So what I found is that often, if not always, there'd be snippets of conversation audible, you know, either in my mind or just outside my head. And these were like, they were always English speaking voices, sometimes with American accents, and they were just speaking small snippets of speech that were in themselves meaningless. And I think there's an answer to that, you know, in terms of occult realities. So I'll give you one example. I'd had an experience in the bedroom, and I was coming out, and I could hear this woman talking, but it was just snippets and no meaning. But she sounded like she'd had a tipple. And in my mind, I thought, it sounds like she's been drinking sherry. That was the thought in my mind. And as soon as I had that thought, the same voice is, I beg your pardon. I was like, whoa. And then, you know, I've had other experiences where, let's just keep it simple. And entities come out. When I say entity, I don't mean like a machine elf, but I mean, I don't know, something with phenomenal powers of will and imagination and some capacity to give me a sight that I would not otherwise have. So it's done something in the bedroom. And then this astral stuff falls down, but it's awful. It's reprehensible, and I can't tell you why, because it's got that sheen to it, and I can hear all these different voices, just snippets, and this stuff, it looks like an occult dishcloth. It's horrible to look at. And then when you start to read esoteric and occult literature, and it talks about, the death process of a human being, where, your personality will become an astral shell, and that will slowly disintegrate, and I'm pretty sure I was given an insight or a sight of that kind of like process in the occult realm, where disintegrating astral shells that still maintain a modicum of personality and energy, and just able to talk meaningless snippets of text. And that's a sight I've had, 2 or 3 times, and I feel really blessed to have seen that, because it kind of gives credence to the esoteric and occult literature that I've read and the ideas that I believe in, and I probably, in my research and my publications, not made as much capital on this as perhaps I should. And talking about it now, I feel like, it's maybe I should, but yeah, I mean, it's yeah, gone on a bit there.
Do you think that you have ever had an experience that was so jarring from consensus reality that you tried to pull yourself out of it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and I mean, there's times where I've smoked a breakthrough dose in the bedroom, and then laid back, and you feel like so with my favored method of smoking, it's like 3 hits on the machine, like Terence McKenna, and like when you're taking that second hit, you can feel something's in the room. There's no two ways, like it's here, and then you're taking that third hit, and it's watching and it's waiting, and you lay back, and I've like blessed with a really good set of lungs, and I'm a Yorkshireman, so I like to get the best out of these experiences. So I'm a champion. I'm a champion at retaining smoke or vapor in my lungs, and it's only when you like breathe out, and then I breathed out, and I thought, I want to run, I want to bolt out of it, but it's too late. Then it's too late, Yeah, there's been experiences that have really jarred me, and I think one of those is, I think it might be in the second book, this thing, and it was really atypical to the usual entities, and those usual entities, and what I mean by that is those nature spirits or devas that impose that wonderful, they're almost like thematic experiences, there's art that shows that there's a common trend here, but this was completely different. This was like, it spiraled, it filled the room. I could see the room. It was filled with all this astral stuff that wasn't me, and I could see this thing spiraling down to my chest, to my heart, and this thing gave such a, I felt like it could have snuffed my life out like that. I was terrified. But you know what? Those experiences, when you start to reflect, they're the ones that are most rewarding, interesting, because it shows there's it's just like, it's not all about machine elves or clowns or this and that. There's some really bizarre things out there, but that scared me, really scared me.
Well, my dear, hopefully you are. I'm glad that you decided to mention your experience. I was going to say experiment.
It was an experiment.
Unbeknownst to you.
I think where I have been, I'm still trying to figure out what happened. I think that's part of it. But I think where I have been hesitant was the setting.
Yeah, sure.
It's like really telling people, I had my pants around my ankles. I
At
was
some
sitting
point,
on the toilet.
You have to say that you're in the bathroom.
On the toilet. It's so fucking ridiculous and absurd.
Humbling.
It just shows how audacious I am in my feelings about my capacity.
Now you know. And I figured if you were going to bring it up at any time, it would be good to bring it up to a veteran of these realms.
Yeah. I'm trying to get some insight. I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck happened. And so I think that that's where a lot of my desire to talk about it comes from. And also my hesitation because, all these people that we've talked to about this are talking about metallic elves or whatever, and I didn't have any of that. My thing was so unique to me and the environment I was in that I think that this conversation helped me to kind of understand a little bit more what happened. And it does feel like there was this vast realm and reality that I was given one tiny little glimpse into because that's all I could handle in that moment because I wasn't prepared for it. So I think that's why what happened for me in the way that it happened. But where I have been freaked out a little bit is thinking what you were saying last night has been a thought I've been having, like, all these physical changes have happened to me since I was in that state. Did some energy piggyback on me and come back with me, and that's what's happening, and that's why I'm experiencing the physical stuff I'm experiencing right now? I don't know. So I think I've just been freaked out, just to be completely candid. I've just been totally freaked out and not wanting to confront how jarring it was.
I think that's absolutely appropriate reaction. And if you read his book, you would understand that he vacillated from being totally freaked out to like almost to the point of dread at continuing this research that he's doing and being elated. And I think you just started off at the intense place that you started off. But I think that he had a great point about the setting and the reverence. Not just the bathroom, but just more the attitude that you had.
Yeah, my internal setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the external setting probably played a little role in that too. And that if you did it with a different state of mind and a different setting, then you would probably have a vastly different experience.
Yeah. And I don't know that I was prepared for a vastly different experience. And that's why I think I had the one that I had, because what frightened me when it was happening was thinking that I was going to be stuck in that state. Mm-hmm. That was the scariest part. So when the shift in perception happened and it was so extreme, it was like I was trying to get back to reality. Kind of the thought that just occurred to me is the dachshund in The Grinch when they've stolen all the toys and he sees this thing behind him of all these toys, and he's supposed to be pulling this thing, this sleigh that's got all the stuff, and he's freaking out.
The looming shadow.
Yeah, and then he jumps on top of it, and then he's all happy and elated as he's whizzing down that hill. That's what I felt like, was that suddenly I realized what was not only behind me, but was in everywhere, just encapsulating me. And I was like, no, I want out of this, and I want back to what I know, what the known world. And I have never experienced something that was so mind altering.
Do you think you'll go back?
I don't know. I mean, I've thought about it, but I keep thinking, like, okay, what's the perfect setting? Like, where is this place where I could be that I would feel. So that's why when he said, oh, like he did it outside and
in the hammock,
and he's talked about these different places, I thought, okay, well, yeah, I could do it in a different environment for sure.
Yeah, outside at night, in the lying in the hammock, maybe, or
even in the daytime, lying in the hammock.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's just more people around and stuff like that. And that's all I was thinking about, like dogs and dog walkers and neighbors and JT.
Yeah.
Anyway,
people's.
Yes. I definitely want to go back. The experience that I had, I really only counted as one experience. I just sort of I dipped my toe into it, but it was enough to realize how discombobulating it was.
Yeah.
And tried it again with the laser via the Danny Goler experiences, and it didn't work. But I think it was a lot of things. I think it was the setting, it was my state of mind. I didn't do nearly enough. So I definitely want to try it again, but under the right circumstances, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Dick was fantastic.
He was amazing.
Yeah. Very down to earth, cool, positive person.
And he just reminded me about kind of taking the shame away from experimenting. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that he's so candid with his kids, because I think it's really important that they get a different impression of these things, and they don't feel that these things are vilified.
Exactly.
I think having a healthy respect for something is different than having a negative attitude about it. And so to hear him talking about his children's relationship with him and his wife and kind of what the ecosystem that they've created, it sounds very conducive to someone being able to explore and experiment. And that's always what I want to know about, is the family. Like, what do your kids think? What does your wife think? Like, I love it.
Well, that's how I was always forthcoming about the pot with the kids, is because it's cognitive liberty is important. We should have the opportunity. We should be able to experiment with states of mind and consciousness, preferably not with destructive things like, meth and heroin and cocaine to some extent. But there are lots of different ways of altering your state of mind that's positive, that's expanding, expansive, educational, can be very self-reflective and help you grow if you're looking at it to kind of aid you on your journey, whatever that journey may be. I think there's a way to respect it, and also take responsibility for getting into those states of mind. Yeah. So I always wanted to delineate the fact that just because there are laws against this, what the fuck do laws mean? Laws are just man-made constructs. The real laws are universal common laws. They're not anything that is, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Put forth by some judicial system that's out to regulate people's behavior. Laws like that are to limit the gates of consciousness that we're allowed to explore and go into and talk about and be open and honest about in any kind of public forum. And I think that those laws are bullshit. So it's okay to say not all laws are there for a good reason. Many of them are not. And they're there just so people can jump hoops or pay for licenses or whatever. So anyway.
I just don't want to normalize one behavior and vilify another behavior. And I don't think that we do that. So I think in our culture, alcohol is normalized for everybody, not just teenagers, but for people in general. Like, the alcohol is the go-to. And these other substances are treated as though they're evil and that there's something wrong with those substances. And it's not about personal responsibility. It's about controlling and legislating behavior, which you cannot do, and it doesn't work. So for me, what I am interested in doing, I would just be beside myself if our kids started smoking pot, or if they started doing coke, or they started drinking or doing anything like that.
Yeah.
I did those things when I was their age because I was in deep, deep distress and pain. It wasn't necessarily exploratory.
Yeah.
It was disassociative. And I would never want the kids to do anything because they were in pain and they didn't know how to express that pain
As escapism.
as a way to escape that pain. So
Yeah.
getting drunk or getting super high or whatever. I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is their curiosity about substances and being able to share those experiences with them in a consensual way if they are interested in, not pushing it on them, not trying to vilify, not trying to romanticize, but giving them an arena where they can experience those things safely. I'm totally on board with that, but it has to be age appropriate.
Yeah.
So I don't think a 14-year-old should be doing DMT. I don't think a 14-year-old should be getting high, getting drunk, because I don't think that they have the capacity to handle those things and understand those things. I should not have been doing DMT when I was 14. In the state of mind I was in, that would have not been good for me. So I think taking away the legislative aspect of this, or this other overlord coming in and regulating that stuff, is not necessary. What is more important to me is giving them the opportunity to explore these spaces if they want to, but for the right reasons, not because they're trying to stuff pain down.
Sure.
And this is the way to do that.
I think even recreational would be better than escapism, for sure. I think that I didn't necessarily have anything that I was trying to escape, but I was studying the occult and metaphysics from an early age. So I was, all of that stuff was on my radar, different realms, different realities, different dimensions. So to me, the natural progression of that was psychedelic drugs. So what can these drugs do? Where are they taking people? What kind of experiences are people having? So I was into exploring those kinds of spaces. So I think I did it in a fairly, actually, for the circumstances, a fairly constructive way. I don't think I was trying to get away from a horrible family life or anything like that. Sure, there was dissatisfaction involved, but that's normal. So it completely depends on the person, I believe, whether they're mentally and psychologically mature or prepared enough to undertake that, and that they know what they're undertaking. They're well educated and they've done the research, or they've had some mentor that helps them in those areas, because they are states of mind, as your recent experience will attest to, states of mind that deserve respect and reverence. And so that's a very, very important aspect of it, I think, too.
Yeah. I think one thing I was trying to dive into a little bit with Dick is whether or not there's any autonomy in that space or any control in that space as a human. Or are these entities or these energies, are they the masters of that space and you are just kind of the witness or the observer? Because for me, there's been a few, and we've talked about this on the show before, where there was a time where I took psilocybin and immediately I was like, nope, not the right people, not the right experience. I'm out. And I did not trip. Like, I stopped myself from tripping before I started to hallucinate. With this experience, it was so intense and so jarring. It felt like it took all of my energy and all of my reserves to be able to extricate myself from what was happening. And so that's where I'm curious about that space is, are there maybe guardians at the gate that when you imbibe this stuff, that suddenly they go, no, you're not coming in, or we're going to put you over here in this room, or you're going to go in this section, or, or is it that once you're in, and there's no backpedaling?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the immediacy of it has to play a major role, because you don't have enough time to get your bearings. Not only, I mean, it in and of itself is intense and all encompassing, the experience itself, but to arrive there almost instantaneously is it's a mind fuck in and of itself. So I like what they're doing, or they've talked about doing. I think maybe it's their next sort of phase of experiments at DMTX, where not only are they aiming for intravenous longer DMT experiences where you're in there longer so you have enough time to get your bearings, but you go in more gradually, which I think would probably be very helpful and beneficial. So you're not like, you don't feel like somebody just hit you with a metaphysical 2x4 in the head. And so, and you're just, like you said, I think that was a very good metaphor. Like you woke up on a roller coaster that was just about ready to go into its deepest plunge,
I felt like I was standing in line to get into like the coolest club in the universe, and it was my turn, and the guardian at the gate opened the door and then kicked me in the butt into the bar or into the disco. And I was like, whoa, how did I end up here? And I'm not so convinced that everyone needs to have that experience. I don't think that it's necessarily for everyone. I had so many questions, like I wanted to ask him about babies and DMT and the pineal gland being more open or more fluidic when you're an infant, and maybe babies being in and out of this state for the first year of their life, and what are his thoughts on that? Because it does seem like I don't think it's a physical place. Like I don't see it as an out of body experience. I don't see it as a place that's outside. I see it as an integration.
Well,
go ahead.
No, finish your thought.
So there's all these different, so we've often used the metaphor of like the layer of the onion. How I perceive this is that let's say there's a million layers of this onion, and what DMT does is DMT is on the outside of the onion, and it's shining the light on the inside of the onion, and you're the core of the onion, and suddenly you see this light coming from the outside, and you realize, oh, there's 6,000 layers between me and that light. And that's what it feels like, is that you suddenly realize there's things upon things upon things upon things upon things, and that can be infinite.
I don't remember what I was going to say. Where did you start that?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
We've been going on for 19 minutes, though.
Yeah, we should probably cap it. But
Shit.
Yes, definitely much more to get into with Dick. I would like to talk to him at least after reading one more of his books, because he continues to expand the realm of his experiences. And I mean, whereas the first book was basically just like a journal of his experiences as is, I think there is more commentary and more of a context within the two books following that. So I'm very excited to get into that. Yes.
Out-of-body experience is where I started.
Out-of-body experiences. Oh, different, not a place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, that's where maybe the word dimension comes into play, where I don't see dimensions as being these different locales, but things that are all superimposed and sandwiched on top of one another, interpenetrating, but at different densities and frequencies. And maybe that is where, because a lot of people have said that, and including Terence McKenna recounts giving DMT to a very advanced practitioner of Buddhism, a very advanced teacher, a monk, saying, what do you think about this? What do you think DMT is? Well, it's the beginning of the out-of-body experience. It's the beginning of going to the bardo. So I think in a sense it it is the change of frequency that maybe happens at the moment of death, which that also includes going from the physical to someplace else or to some other frequency. So out of body, yeah, maybe, but does that necessarily, maybe a better way of putting it would be not tethered to the body, not tethered to your physical being. Maybe you're in the same exact place, space, but you're not tethered to the your coarse physical aspect of yourself.
You're not just tethered to that.
Yeah.
You suddenly realize that there's maybe more of a web that you are connected or interconnected with.
Exactly. So, yes, I highly suggest, I can vouch for this book because I've read it. It's incredible. But then Dick also has the second part to that and the third part where there is a drastic change in cover art. But this one's much thicker.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading those. But we will have the links in the episode notes to buy these on Amazon.
That's a good cover.
Yeah, it's a great cover. He has been known to offer signed copies that you can get directly from him, but I would suggest contacting him with that request if you have that. But thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this was enlightening for you and you gleaned some wisdom, or just we're enjoying hearing about other people's experiences in this insanely, vastly different realm that is really right here in our room right now. We just can't seem to access it. But yeah, I thought it was a great conversation. So
I did too. And I keep, sorry, excuse me. I keep tripping out on that idea that there's this room that we are in, that we consider ourselves physically in, and then there's these versions of us that we've recorded. It's such a mind fuck to think which one of those is the real us. Is it me looking at you through this camera? Is that who you really are? Is it the you that I see when I look directly at you? Like, what is real? Like,
from my very limited experience that I can at least recall in this particular iteration of myself, I would think because we are operating, it would seem, in a 3D realm, coarse physical realm, that whatever is closer to that baseline is what is real, as far as this realm is concerned.
Right. But that day when we recorded that episode 2 years ago, I thought that was real. Just pick any day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I thought that day was real. So
but
is that more real because it happened in the past, or is this more real because it's happening right now?
Well, the documentation is just a reproduction of that experience. It's not the experience itself, I would say. But then we can go into the realm of the Akashic records, where supposedly everything on all dimensions is recorded and somehow captured. And, you know, maybe that's the real yeah, I mean, good question. And especially if you're looking at time as a very nonlinear phenomenon. I'm sorry for my speech impediment, dear audience, but I've had dental surgery earlier this week, so I'm kind of, what was I saying? What is a multidimensional phenomenon? What did I say? I lost my train of thought. Obviously, you lost.
I captured by your dreamy blue eyes.
Oh, shucks. Yeah, I honestly lost my track of my trailer. And you further scrubbed it from my mind with your delightful comments on my eyes. We'll just leave it at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, well,
we know
this is an ongoing conversation.
We know where we live.
Exactly. Yeah, I really want to capture that. But anyway, perhaps we can take it up later.
Yeah, we will.
All right. To get a hold of us, there's the Melt podcast at protonmail.com.
Hunter-muse at protonmail.com. And keep those emails coming.
Please suggest guests. A lot of our best guests come from your recommendations. So thank you for what you guys have provided. And we have a lot of fantastic stuff coming up. So,
We do.
Yes. All right.
All right.
Take care, all. Much love. Keep it locked.
Meow.